Okay. Hello and welcome to the Monday, May 16th, 2011 City Council Informational. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start off with the City Council staff report with Deborah A. Owens, City Clerk, Chief of Council Operations. Welcome back.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. A couple of things for council business, if I may. This is Public Works Week, as many of you know, and so if you are planning on attending some of those great opportunities out in the field, could you let the clerk's office know so we can make sure that we give proper notice if there's a quorum of council? And those press releases, I believe, are coming through your email system. In addition, just to let the public know that the deadline for the applicants being sought for the Districting Commission is Monday, May 23rd at 4 p.m. in our office, and hopefully those who are wanting to serve would submit those applications, which are available online at clerks at siouxfalls.org under the clerks section of the web page. You can download that and then print it and get that into us as soon as possible. And then finally, if I could, just take an opportunity to thank the council. I have spent some time away at the International Institute for Municipal Clerks. It's a 10,000-member organization that spans across the globe. It includes other countries besides the United States, such as the Netherlands, the UK, England, Scotland, Wales, and South Africa, Israel, Hungary, Bulgaria, all of Canada. And it's just a fantastic opportunity to be with folks who do what we do here in the city of Sioux Falls and to be able to network. But most importantly, the organization is dedicated to educational training through institutes. Some are based stateside, some are based internationally and in Canada. And so it was just a fantastic time. As all of you know, I have the privilege of serving on as one of the regional directors for one of the 11 regions for the organization. And so I really appreciate the time away and to be able to serve in that capacity, and for the wonderful opportunity it afforded me, and hopefully will bring back all of the value that I have learned there and help the city be that much more effective. Thank you.
Any questions for Deborah? Any questions about her trip and training? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Deborah. We'll move on to our Public Services Committee. If we could get a report from the chair, Council Anderson.
Our Public Services Committee meeting held last Monday. We had two items on our agenda. The first one was the pawn shop ordinance. After reviewing that, and it was decided to move that to the council, and that should be on the agenda coming up here in June. The second thing on the agenda that we looked at was the administrative appeals process, and at the request of the city attorney, we've held that over in committee for another meeting, and we'll be discussing that further.
Any questions for the chair? I have one, if I could. Kenny, will you send the other councilors the pawn shop ordinance so they can review it prior?
I'm sorry.
It's already on?
It's on, sorry.
And the city attorney has reviewed that and is all good?
And
Okay.
I'll make sure that both versions, there was actually a version by the police department. That's the one that is being recommended by the committee.
Okay.
There also was a second one that was done by some of the business owners and with their attorney. I'd like to make sure that you guys also have that one to see exactly where they were having their differences at.
Go ahead.
Thank you,
Deborah?
Chairman. And if I could, I missed that meeting, but I understand that there may be some amendments that may be coming forward that I'll work with Councilmember Anderson on to bring those forward to the June meeting for second reading, not the first reading. And so there may be some changes there as well, depending on your wishes. So
Correct.
thank you.
I just want to be clear that we get the recommendation from the Public Services Committee, that the other councilors know what that recommendation is.
And that is on SIRE.
Okay. Okay, very good. Any other questions for the Public Services Committee Chair? Okay, we'll move on to our City Council open discussion. We do have a presentation from Mark Cotter. I had asked Mark to share with us his list of other street projects that he has available to him to do yet this year in this cycle. So if I could add Mark to the beginning of our open discussion, and then we'll move on to others. That's okay. I think we're good. Thanks, Mark.
All right, good afternoon, Council Chair Jameson and councilors. Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. Today, I've just put together 3 brief slides to first do a recap on what's planned for 2011, which is a very busy year through and across the city, and most of the key projects, which is one of our largest projects, started today, which is the revamp of 57th Street in the southwest part of the city. But this map shows where we'll be on all levels of street maintenance, from reconstructions all the way down to the microsurface activities that will extend the life of our pavements. The milling contractors have moved into town, and the area, those milling areas, is there a beam on this? Okay. The milling contractors are currently, the milling contractors are currently moving into that neighborhood that's being highlighted, and those are the areas where we really cover a significant amount of blocks. And again, just to recap, before we go into those types of neighborhoods, we televise the utilities, we make any necessary repairs, whether it's a new hydrant, a new manhole, a segment of sewer. Then we evaluate the accessibility ramps, make sure that they're brought up to standard. If a valley gutter needs to be replaced, that work gets done, as well as any settled curb. Last step is actually when the milling contractors move in. They mill off the top 2 inches, and we put on the new surface. And so all that work is underway and moving forward. Next slide. This may be a little challenging to read, but I've for a talking point today. When we sat down and internally with the mayor and Tracy Turback looked at what priorities does the city have for the additional $3.8 million, the timing was, I would say, very timely, because we had each just gone before the mayor and Director Turback on the capital needs. And I think, it's a really good time. It allows people to actually get through the bidding time frame of 2011, and also starts to look forward at what the program will be from 2012 to 2016. And that's why you've seen a good cross-section of projects across multiple departments, because there are obviously multiple capital needs throughout the city, and the ultimate list that you've seen was prepared that good cross-section from fire all the way through public works. So when we were asked what are our top priorities for additional street work, we listed out priorities 1 through 3, and those were in the presentation last week. 41st Street from Western Avenue to Minnesota Avenue, and this would be a similar strategy that we did on Minnesota last year, as well as Russell. Many of those joints are faulted, and instead of going in and trying to correct all those joints, we would recommend actually doing an asphalt overlay and extending the life of that pavement. And that has a cost of $800,000. As you see, the column that's listed as estimate, that's the project estimate, and then the one over is the cumulative total. The next one is Minnesota Avenue from 22nd Street to I-229. And this just essentially, we were able to accomplish the majority of the Techcrete needs on this road last year. But just with late season temperatures, we would also go back to that segment of Minnesota Avenue and repair a couple more of those faulting joints. And so we've listed that out as $190,000. And then last, Marion Road is another street that we've, this year with the opening of the interchange on I-90, and that road's over 10 years old. It's starting to get what we call transverse cracks, and so we would recommend actually milling out many of those cracks and then resurfacing those. We're doing that right now with our own teams on Rice Street. If you drive between Cleveland Avenue and Timberline, that would be the same strategy that we would recommend to do on Marion Road. And so that was the extent of our recommendation. Obviously, as at any given time, we like to have a list in place that either allows us to move forward with current authority to do more if we get favorable bids, or it also allows us to start to work on the next year's program. And essentially, that's what we do. And so our approach is that we would capture items 4 through 12 through our 2012 program. Was our approach and our request with the additional funds. I can highlight just quickly some of those other ones if you have any questions on them. But at this point, priorities 1 through 3 was our desired list.
Any questions for Mark? Councilor Entenmann.
On 41st Street, Mark, other than just the overlay, the bad potholes, the cracks, the concrete that's in fault right now, do you do temporary repairs on those and then overlay on top of that? Is that what you do?
Yes. That's and one of the things that we found most successful when we did Minnesota and Russell, we did try some different strategies out there to see what's going to work best for us, and also building on what we learned when we overlaid Louise Avenue from 49th to 41st Street. And we did that primarily in preparation of the 41st Street Bridge and all the additional traffic that we were going to send that way. We would likely do the minor repairs on that road, and then we would lay what we call a scratch course, which is about 1 inch of asphalt, and then use steel face and rubber tire rollers to really knead in that base lift of asphalt to take out any surface irregularities. And then we would back up at the start and lay a 1.5 inch final mat. So essentially that's been what we believe is the best strategy to correct some of those surface deficiencies and ultimately have the best driving surface. If you go back to the first slide, you'll see that if you point to 41st Street, we currently are going to be doing a significant amount of 41st Street right now. Last year we bid the project that went from Marion Road and 41st Street to I-229 or I-29. And that work's underway and well over half done. They likely have about 4 to 6 weeks of work to complete. And then we will move in with a secondary later fall project from I-29 all the way to Western with a combination of joint and spall repair and techcrete. So the area that we're talking about is that area between Western and Minnesota right there, that our recommendation would be is if there's additional dollars available, we would do an asphalt overlay. There's just too many faulting joints there to actually, it doesn't make sense to us to actually either do techcrete or joint and spall repair.
In the future, Mark, on that, what are the plans for Minnesota Avenue going west then for 41st Street? I mean, is it going to be reconstructing that section of 41st Street at some point in time in the future? Or?
It will. I think one of the things that we'll gauge is that we obviously want to maximize the life of these pavements, and that segment of 41st Street's been in there for some time. Anytime we do a joint and spall repair, like from Marion Road all the way to Kiwanis, we expect that will give us a full 7 to 8 years of good joint performance. When we do an asphalt overlay, I think we're going to see, our goal is to actually achieve at least a 5-year life out of that asphalt overlay. And I think, too, when we can do it with the first lift as what we call a scratch course and the second lift as a final overlay, I believe we can actually achieve that. Okay.
Councilor Wolfing.
Yes, Mark. How long on this milling? When we mill it down, how long do you expect that to last? As instead of reworking the whole thing, just pulling it up and putting down a whole new road, and most of that is done on asphalt, right?
That's correct. And when we started the discussion, that was a residential neighborhood.
Right.
We expect to do that level of maintenance every 15 to 17 years, and then in between those periods, we want to microsurface those streets probably twice. And so those are the different strategies that we would use to maximize the life of that pavement.
Will that how can I put this? Would pulling the whole road up and putting a new one down increase the life expectancy on that much at a greater amount? To a greater amount? And what would the cost difference be?
Oh, it'd be significant. When we reconstruct a block, for example, a typical block in, say, the Cathedral area, as we've been in the Cathedral area pretty heavy for the last 3 to 4 years, that costs about $90,000 a block to take a complete block out, and that's usually, if we get to that standpoint, we usually have some significant utility issues to deal with. We may have a 6-inch water main that we want to upsize to an 8, things of that nature. When we do a mill and overlay, and we have to do some things like settled curb, new valley gutters, that's usually a $7,000 to $9,000 per block. So we can get a lot more for our money if we do these mill and overlays, and we get the opportunity too then to address any handicap accessibility ramps that are not up to code, and a number of those strategies, and just honestly in the world of trying to get as much out of what you already have, a lot of times those base layers are in good shape, and if we mill down and we find an area that's broke up, we pull all that out. But the top part of asphalt normally, just with the oxidation of the sun, dries it out. It starts to crack. We're able to actually take that top 2 inches off, correct any surface irregularities, and then put 2 inches of new asphalt on. So it actually works, I'd say, very well.
Yeah, at that price, we can do it 2 or 3 times, or.
That's right.
Okay.
Councilor Anderson.
Mark, I see here that we are going to do some work on Western Avenue between Madison and 12th Street.
Yes.
And what's in our plans for south of that on Western? I've driven that several times, and it's a quite interesting road between 12th Street and 22nd right now.
Okay.
And especially 18th to 22nd is just horrible.
Let me take a look at that for you and get back to you. I would expect that if it falls in line with a mill and overlay, it would be, and if it's to that condition, I just can't speak to that exact condition of what our plan is today. But I'll check on that for you.
That's one of the worst roads I've driven on this year.
You
Okay.
can go all the way down to 33rd on that, too, and that intersection of 33rd and Western is not good either.
Okay. There was some work that was done just last year between 26th and 22nd, and that was brand new. We
Right.
actually pulled all that out and repaved it, so I'll look north of 22nd
And I thought
Street.
they went 26 south to 33rd, but I know
no.
they did
We haven't been south of 26th
Yeah, the
Street.
street is bad there, and that intersection at 33rd and Western could use some techcrete, is that what they call it?
Right. Well, one of the reasons we stayed out of 33rd and Western is just we did a number of those collector intersections in that area. We were trying to give some relief to some of those commuter traffics, but that intersection is one of our key ones to reconstruct, as well as like 26th and Grange. So we've got some of those on the docket, but I will take a look at Western from 22nd up to 12th.
Thank you.
One of the goals that we were under trying to get done here was utilizing that $3.8 million that we have left over. And some of the challenges that Mark would have is that he needs projects that would be ready for construction this season that he could start on right away. I think during our work session we're going to analyze this list that Mark has provided, as well as all other items in the CIP that could be addressed, as well as the list that was provided last week, I believe it was, by Tracy Turbeck. And we'll come to those, I guess, our decisions during that work session. But we just need to keep that in mind, is that it needs to be something that we can utilize and get done right away this season. That list that you have, Mark, would you provide that to all of us?
I certainly will. I didn't make copies for today, but I can get them made.
I think that would be helpful, especially for us next week.
Okay.
Also, Mark, just a quick question on if and when we're working through this year's projects and you have savings that you incur through bidding, are you working from another list of roads that then you would flow this money into automatically without questioning or wondering what we might think you just automatically flow Do you have a list that you work from?
Well, actually, we did have very good bids. Our asphalt price came in lower than we expected. Excuse me. Excuse me. So we immediately went to 41st Street with those additional dollars, and that's the segment between I-29 and the Big Sioux River. Will you point to that? And so the list that I just shared on the PowerPoint would only be additional appropriation. Okay. We're working within the current strategy. We did have a priority, and priority one is 41st Street, just with the volume of calls and the number of vehicles in that section. We get about 37,000 vehicles per day in that section. So we immediately went to that to get those projects turning, so we can anticipate a fall letting. But then beyond this, because that to me was what I think is really the strength of the pooled project, of the overlay as well as the concrete repair, is our teams know where they're getting the phone calls. They also know where the traffic is driving, and we feel like it's our job to make sure we execute those dollars as best we can. And so we've already immediately gone to, with that savings, we've gone to 41st Street to put those plans together so we can ultimately bid that work, okay? Which is the segment that's highlighted under the current authorization.
Maybe if I could, all I was maybe looking for, I think we all would like, is if you could tell us more frequently that, look, we've had a savings, here's how we're plugging it back into our roads.
Okay.
I think that would help all of us understand what you're doing. I think all of us trust what you're doing and know that your method is sound and selecting those decisions, but just informing us would just by telling us would be helpful.
Very good. Will do.
Anything else for Mark? Councilor Aguilar.
Can I ask some questions about Public Works Week?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, tomorrow you have at Pasley Park, 12 to 2:30 Public Works Service Exhibition, and then 2:30 to 4 Central Main Segment 6 update.
Mm-hmm.
So what time, I mean, if someone wanted to attend but doesn't want to be there all afternoon,
Right.
what would you suggest the time be?
Well, at any given time, we'll have people out there, and so if you came, we'll be able to show you both. Basically, the exhibition is kind of an equipment roundup, but it also shows, last year if you were able to come and you've seen like the light department set up, what a light looked like, and then the different types of lights that we've tested to try to minimize our electrical use, because with about 17,000 street lights, it's important that we have the right strategy going forward. But we also have the gentleman there that makes our signs, so kids and adults alike can actually see how a street sign gets made, and a number of those types of things that will happen. That's in part of the exhibition. You can come and go at any time. The nice thing about having it at Pasley Park, then, if you want to see the Central Main, we'll have people that can just walk you down, so you wouldn't necessarily have to be there at 2:30. Just
Okay.
when it works best for you in that range, we'll walk down. The Central Main work on both is going very well. Just in general, it's only the middle of May. It's about 15,000 feet of pipe that we're working to put in, and just over 3,000 has already been installed of this large diameter sewer pipe. So the contractors are doing very good.
Thank you.
On Wednesday, if we can build off of that, is harvesting groundwater. We'd like to show you the new horizontal collector well, which is just north of the airport. And so we're asking people to actually meet at the water plant, and then we'll bus you to the site. And so that should be interesting if you've not seen a groundwater well of this caliber. They're massive. For a city of our size, we have to put in very efficient wells. The next is household hazardous waste facility, and just the volume of material that we're starting to take in. I was just there the other day for about 20 minutes, and probably 12 cars came in with daily electronics pickup, all the paint. The spring cleanups really started for people now that the sun's actually came out. And so just to see the volume of material, I think it'd be really interesting if you've not seen that facility to see that the City of Sioux Falls is really a leader in that area to keep all those types of things out of the landfill. And then last, and some would say it would be the highlight, would be climbing the water tower on Friday. And so that's all internal. You'll be on a harness system. And one of the things we've done this year is that we've tried to limit the time that people spend on the top of the water tower, because a few people went up last year and it was hard to bring them down because they're interested in the view. And so we had about 50 people go up last year, and this year we're going to try to beat that number, but also try to cap the time at the top at about 10 minutes. So I would encourage you to come out on any of those. So
Okay, thank you, Mark.
you're welcome.
Other City Council open discussion items? Any,
Oh, go ahead first,
Deborah?
Thank you. I was just going to say thank you for your service. I know tonight is the night that the council will elect their new leadership, but it's been a year of your serving as chair, and for those who haven't served yet, it is a very time-consuming job to do. So thank you for your service to the council.
Oh, you bet. Oh, thank you very much. It's my privilege. Any other open discussion items? Councilor Anderson.
I wanted to give a thank you to Mark Cotter. Last Thursday, on very short notice, I asked Mr. Cotter to join me for lunch. Lunch was speaking in front of the Southside Kiwanis Club. And Mark brought some information on street projects and everything that we were going to be doing this year. And they were very happy to have both of us there, and were very inquisitive on numerous subjects. And I think we walked out of there with a very happy group. So I wanted to thank you, Mark, for responding so quickly for me, too.
Great, great. Anything else? A couple of items I have. First, we are working on scheduling a working session for next week. I think you've all seen the email trying to settle on a date and a time. The purpose of that meeting is to do several things, one of which is to figure out how we want to spend $3.8 million in capital funds, but the other is to probably work out any issues that we might have regarding the event center and our decision about its location. We are going to have to make a vote on that, and if there's any issues or any questions that we still have remaining, that'll give us a chance to ask questions. That's just a couple of the items I see on the agenda, but there could be others. If there's people that we want to have attend that meeting, we need to invite them. We need to make sure that every counselor who needs a question answered gets it answered. It's only fair, I believe, to the administration that we provide them with a site, probably sooner than later. But we want to make sure that the decision we make is one that we're comfortable with. But that probably needs to happen pretty quick. So I think our working session is going to be very important, very full. But we're trying to set that date, and I already know there's a couple of conflicts with that date, so work with council leadership to finalize the date so we can get everybody there. Hopefully everybody can attend. Well, let's see. Also wanted to update you that there is an audit committee meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock here. The agenda is available online if you'd like to see it. Other than that, anything else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our presentations. We'll start off with our monthly financial report with Tracy Turbick. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Public Works Week sounds like a lot of fun and very interesting. I suppose maybe we should give some thought to a Public Finance Week someday, or maybe an hour or two anyway. I am here with my regular monthly financial report for the month ended April 30th. Thank you. It will be fairly brief. I do have some slides on economic indicators for you, some of those that we track, snapshot of the general fund financial performance so far this year, and then a couple slides on some of the capital projects that are in progress or planned for this year as well. Starting off with the sales tax collection information, this chart shows you 2009, 10, and so far in 11. The blue line is the sales tax collection growth. For 2009, we all recall what a miserable year that was. It started out bad and just kind of slid downhill gradually for the entire year, ending with a 5.8% decrease. 2010 is the red line, and you can see that starting in 2010, the January numbers were very high. That is somewhat misleading because there was a significant audit collection that was received in January of 2010, and so that tended to overstate early in the year kind of the rate of growth that we were seeing. And of course, by the end of the year, we finished up with about a 3.8% growth rate in our sales tax collections. The green line is current year for the first 4 months of the year, and because of the high audit collections in January of 2010, that translates to a smaller growth rate for January of 2011 because we're comparing it to a rather inflated number from January of 2010. So that's why the very first data point there in January of 2011 reflects a significant decrease. We are in positive territory overall by the end of April and at 1.2%. And if we removed the effect of those audit collections and looked at what I think is a truer picture of what our growth rate is, so far this year we'd be at about a 4.2% growth rate for the first 4 months of the year. This slide represents the building permit activity for the last 3 years. You can see, again, the green line is the 2011 figures. You can see it's starting its somewhat seasonal trend, growing in the spring of the year. Year to date so far, we've issued about $65 million in building permits for 2011 for January through April. So considerable amount of activity. We are running ahead of the 2009 numbers and below the 2010 numbers at this point for the first 4 months of the year. Unemployment is another economic indicator that we like to track. Again, this is a 3-year comparison chart. The blue line, again, is 2009. You can see the unemployment rate for the Sioux Falls metropolitan statistical area stayed right around 5% for pretty much the entire year, starting out a little higher in 2010 on the red line, a little over 6%. It fell off pretty significantly in the spring of 2010 and stayed right around 5% the remainder of the year, ending just below 5% by the end of 2010. So far in 2011, for the past month anyway, we've stayed at 5.5%, and that's currently where we are. By comparison, the state unemployment rate at the end of, and these are March month-end numbers, they tend to run a little later than some of the other statistics I'll provide for you, but at the end of March, the state unemployment rate was at 5.5% as well, equal to our own, and the national rate was at 8.8%. This next chart will give you is a pie chart showing the year-over-year growth in the non-farm employment. So in other words, we're comparing the employment in the Sioux Falls area in March of 2010 with the employment at March of 2011. And this pie shows you what sectors of the economy have seen growth and which ones have seen job losses. Overall, the net growth is 900 jobs from March of 2010 to March of 2011. And that would represent the 8th consecutive month of job growth in the Sioux Falls metropolitan statistical area. You can see the largest sector of job growth, showing 900 jobs, is the educational and health services sector, with professional and business services kicking in 600 additional jobs. Well, the largest area of decreasing employment was in the financial activities sector, losing 600 jobs in the past year. And then the rest of those, if you do the math, add up to, as I said, a net increase of 900 jobs. This is a snapshot of the general fund for the current fiscal year. On the left-hand side is the revenue picture. The red bars represent the 2011 data. The blue bars represent last year's or the 2010 data. Currently, our revenues are through April are at 20% of budget, which if you consider that we're 33% through the year by the end of April, is somewhat low, and that's skewed because of the way property tax revenues flow in. And you can see that reflected in the blue bars. They step up relatively evenly from month to month with the exceptions of May, which jumps up quite a bit from April. And that is the first half of property tax collections reflected there. And then again in November, when you compare the change from, or increase from October to November, you can see the second half property tax collections are reflected there. So we did analyze that, and if we smooth those property tax numbers out evenly over the course of the year and assume that we would collect 4/12 of that through April, the 4-month percent of budget would be at 31% of budget, so we'd be much more in line with where we are in terms of the time of the fiscal year, the number of months that have lapsed so far this year. The right-hand side is the expenditure picture, the same data, 2011 in red and 2010 experience in blue. You can see the expenditures are incurred quite evenly throughout the year. It's pretty much a very evenly paced stair-step up through the end of the year. Currently, through April, we've expended 31% of the budget, and again, with 33% of the year lapsed. So the adjusted number I gave you for the revenue of 31% matches up very well with the 31% of budget expended through April. So we're tracking very much as we would expect to relative to our budget in both revenues and in expenditures. The last couple slides I have relate to some of the capital construction projects that have been bid or will be bid. This slide shows you some of the major projects that went out to bid in April. There were a total of 9 projects, and we received an average of 5 bidders on each of those projects. And on average, the low bids came in about 6% under estimate, so we're continuing to see pretty competitive bidding environment. The 4 I've got listed on the sheet here that went to bid in April: the 57th Street project, the Solberg Avenue and I-229 overpass project, and the Harmondon Park entrance relocation, and then the Western Heights water main improvements. Those were 4 of those 9 that went to bid in April. There are, as you know, or well aware, there are a number of construction projects underway. Some of those that were bid in April are already underway. The 57th Street, the Central Main segments 5 and 6 are well underway. The 69th Street and Southeastern Avenue paving improvements, as well as the 10th Street and Braley's neighborhood reconstruction project, are in progress. And major projects left to be bid yet this year include some of the sanitary sewer improvement projects listed here: the Sioux River South Interceptor, the Hayward Trunk Sewer Pipelining Project, the Western Interceptor Relief Pipelining, and the Mark mentioned the Household Hazardous Waste Facility expansion, or that facility, and that will be expanded yet this year. So that is my last slide. If you have questions and time to entertain them, I would certainly try to answer any that you have.
Any questions for Tracy? Councilor Erpenbach.
Tracy, last week I asked you a question, and now I want to ask it again out loud so that folks can understand that this information is there. Would you look at, in addition to the slides that you review for us, which I must say are very helpful because they put things into nutshells and put them in color, which is good for people like me. But in addition to that, what's available online is the monthly financial status report, and it looks like this. And it's line by line, detail by detail. And on page 10, at the top of page 10, is the event center and the $500,000 that we appropriated as a council for all these studies and the things that we're seeing happen right now. I just wanted for you to point that out to folks and then talk to us about, is there a place where online or somewhere where if we wanted more details than just that sort of basic overview, is there a place where we can find that information as citizens?
Thank you. And there is just a tremendous wealth of financial information in this monthly financial report. They are all online, the current ones as well as previous years. If you ever wanted to go back and compare from what may have happened a year or two ago, that information is all available. And to your point, each of the projects that are included in the capital improvement plan for the current year, any projects that have been unfinished or continuing into this year, and any new projects that are in the plan this year do appear in that portion of the report that you pointed out. The capital improvement program project summary. I believe most months it starts about page 9. You mentioned the event center project at the very top of page 10, and that reflects the $500,000 approved budget for this fiscal year, and it reflects the $117,000 approximately of that has been spent. In addition to that, there's another $62,000 that is encumbered or legally bound under contract and will be expended at some point as the contracts are executed and that work is completed. And the balance of $320,000 is available yet. Much of that is earmarked and will be encumbered as additional contracts are executed to finish the work. In terms of further detail than that, there really isn't anything more detailed than that available online. However, that's certainly always available. We can provide much more detailed information down to each last invoice if you're interested in seeing that. We'd certainly be happy to provide that on a somewhat selected basis. Obviously, with the number of projects and the volume of bills, we don't want to have to provide a lot of those invoices or all those invoices for all the projects. But if there's a particular interest in any one, we're certainly more than happy to provide that information. It's all public record, as you know, and certainly available.
Good, thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
Tracy, I don't know if I've missed it or exactly where it is in here. With our arterial road program, where we assigned an 1/8 of a cent penny sales tax to that, where is that accounted at in here?
If you refer to, it's actually about 4 or 5 pages in. It's page number 2 at the bottom. I'm not sure how we arrive at the page number in here, but that is there's an entire page dedicated to the sales and use tax fund, the second penny sales tax. And the top box is really just a very general summary of activity for the year, but the larger box there at the bottom, near the top of that second box, you can see that where the revenue amounts are broken down. Taxes, we've got a current budget amount, which is the total budget from the second penny. The second column there is the actual revenues that have come in from the 0.92 92%, and then the third column there is for the arterial streets, the 0.08. So that represents the portion of revenue that has come in from that revenue stream, and then down below the expenditures show up on a different part of the report under the individual arterial street projects on the portion of the report we were just talking about a moment ago. So you can see where that money is spent on each individual project.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Well, we're very good.
Great.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have the event center update with Mayor Mike Uther. Mayor, I'd just like to remind you, we do have, come on up. We do have that joint meeting at 5:30, and the clerks are requesting like 10 minutes or so to get ready for the meeting, so if you could just know that.
I'm going to be pretty brief, Councilor
Okay.
Jameson. You
Very
bet.
good.
Thank you. City Council and Councilor Jameson, thanks so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I certainly appreciate it. This is our latest update, and I do expect it will be briefer than normal, again, depending on how many questions the Council has. But I wanted to start with, it was about 8 years ago. I ran my first marathon when I had just turned 40. I had fully prepared for the race, felt really good going into the race, had a number of people support me along the training, and went up to Duluth, Minnesota, raring and ready to go. I got to about mile 17, and unexpectedly, I started to cramp up and do some things that I just did not plan for during the race. While I was planning on competing at this high level on my own, I also knew that I probably wasn't going to be able to do it on my own to get through that 26.2 miles. At about mile 17, as I was cramping up, I had fellow competitors, fellow racers, fellow runners that started to encourage me and urge me to keep moving forward. There were spectators along the road that day that were also helping me along this journey. And then, as I looked up ahead, I saw my wife Cindy and my daughter Kylie unexpectedly at this mile. And I had yelled for them to give me packets of goo. It's a runner material that you eat to keep you going. And they were there for me. This event center discussion, I warned early on that this was going to be a marathon, and that at some point in time, we'd have to rally together to ensure that we ultimately made this thing happen. I don't know if it's mile 17 Sioux Falls or mile 17 City Council, but I will tell you that we need your help. We need your help, Sioux Falls. This event center discussion and this event center topic is so important for our city, but it is certainly one that is incredibly challenging. And we're not cramping up in any way, shape, or form, but I am asking right now for some additional help. I had people early on come to me and say, Mayor, when it's time for me to step in, just let me know. It's time for people to step in. I'm asking for business leaders' help and city council help and so many others to step in now to make this a reality for our city. We are going to proactively go out and ask for more help. We are. When I say we, not only myself, but some others within city government, as well as some other community leaders, we are going to go out and proactively ask others to get involved in this journey. I'm not going to read all of these today, but I think you're going to see it's a pretty diverse group. And I want to make sure that you truly understand that not every single organization is listed here today. The many, many more, it's that last bullet, that is real. If we think that by just reaching out to this select group will make this a reality for our city, that is not true. But I did want you to know that within the next 30 to 60 days, I will proactively, along with others, be setting up meetings with these organizations to tell them about the virtues of the Events Center, the benefits that it will bring, and why I believe and why others believe it is so necessary of investment for our generation as well as generations to come. There's a group that is listed as Downtown Sioux Falls Organization. That's a group that makes a big impact in downtown. But I also don't want to lose sight of the fact that there is another organization in town that we are also going to continue to connect with, and that is the Build It Downtown group, as well as others in downtown, as well as across Sioux Falls that want a new event center for our Sioux Falls. It's just that they preferred that it go downtown. We're not going to give up on downtown. And what I wanted to do was at least relay my commitment that as I am mayor for at least 3 more years, God willing, in this city, here's my commitment to the people that are so energized about downtown. I wanted to outline just some of the things that I'm really going to push for and really help lead over the next 3 years. And I also believe that all of these are achievable within the next 1, 2, or 3 years for downtown Sioux Falls. Number one, we will see strong commercial development in downtown Sioux Falls. C&A and Avera and the Holiday Inn City Center and others like that, this is just the beginning. We will remove that railroad switching yard. We are pushing hard at it. We have a goal right now of 2014, and I will continue to push hard to get that railroad switching yard moved. We're going to tear down that old river ramp, and we need to. That eyesore should be gone, because when we do, it will create an even more exciting environment for new businesses to grow and to be prosperous at. When we tear down that old eyesore, we'll be able to build things like a new hotel, new conference center, more bars, restaurants, and retail. The River Greenway project, which is well underway today, we're not done. We will continue to move that project south, and some of the work that you did even last week, and that we'll talk about even more today at today's City Council meeting, will help that progress in downtown Sioux Falls towards the south. The Uptown at the Falls project, that's a project that I'm just kind of getting more and more involved in and intrigued in, but it will create more residential and more commercial development in that uptown area. And we can make that happen this year as well as in the next 2 to 3 years, and you're going to see that. I told you if I was elected that we would repair, rebuild, and replace the aging infrastructure in this town. And you can see that happening in our inner core, in that heart of our city. And that is downtown Sioux Falls. You're seeing it all over downtown, and we will continue that. Darren Smith and his team, they are trying to think outside of that box, brainstorming what are some new investment incentives that we can provide that will entice people to invest their time, talents, treasures, businesses in that downtown area, and that will continue. Here's one that was discussed by the Event Center Task Force group in 2009 and 10. And I want to actually test that as soon as we possibly can with some of the big events that are happening at the arena and at the convention center. And that is a trolley or bus transportation from the current arena convention center to our downtown. We can test that now. And in fact, we should. When we have a large event at the convention center, when we have a large event at the Sioux Falls Arena, we should be able to test that now to see what type of impact that made. What were some of the things that we learned? What were some of the obstacles? But also, what were some of the rewards that we obtained by having a trolley or a bus system or a commuting system from that location to downtown and vice versa? And yes, I believe that when we do build this new event center, and you've heard me say where I recommend that it be built at the current Arena Convention Center site, and we can do it by the fall of 2014, that downtown Sioux Falls will reap the rewards of that new event center. You've seen the scorecard, and I'm not going to dwell on it much, but it was some of the rationale that I utilized in picking the Arena Convention Center site in terms of my recommendation. I wanted to simplify it even more for you, as well as I wanted to simplify it for the people of Sioux Falls even more, so that they could truly understand why I made the selection that I did. What did the experts recommend? The Arena Convention Center site. What do the people of Sioux Falls want? They prefer the Arena and Convention Center site. What will cost the taxpayers less of their hard-earned dollar? The Arena Convention Center site. What maximizes the existing facilities and resources that we have today? The Arena Convention Center site. What will make our city more money? What will generate the greatest return for our city? The Arena and Convention Center site. And then, last but not least, because it is projected that 6 out of every 10 people that will help us make money, that will ultimately be the patrons of our new event center, will come from out of town. What do the out-of-towners prefer? The Arena Convention Center site. It's a more simplified message, but the message, I believe, is clear, and that's why I made that recommendation. Reality, though, is also clear, is that no matter how hard I try, no matter how hard the City Council tries, no matter how hard any good leader tries, the reality is, and I stated this back on October 4th of 2010 when I gave you my first presentation, that as we went through this marathon, as we went through this journey, the reality is the Event Center topic is one which all of us and every citizen of Sioux Falls will not agree with in its entirety. And you already sense that. You already feel that. We knew that going into it. We knew that when I would make my recommendation, and I told you I would, we knew that regardless of the recommendation that I made, I wouldn't make everybody happy. And council, you know it better than anybody, that when you make your decisions, you don't make everybody happy. That ultimately, some are going to be pleased with your decision and others will not. But as long as we infuse balance, common sense, openness, compromise, and a never-ending spirit that we will achieve this goal, I do believe we will succeed. I also realize that not everyone on the council may ultimately agree with what I had recommended. I understand that, and I do respect it. I do. We may not all agree. And what I'm learning is it's not a bad thing. My next-door neighbor, after I was elected mayor, he came to me outside my front door in my front yard, and he said, "Mike, now that you're mayor, you need to realize something. That when you're working with the city council, when you're working in city government, 51% moves Sioux Falls forward." And then he said something that was a real eye-opener for me. He said 60% is a landslide. I am someone who I do want to please everybody. I do. I just can't. I can't. I'd love to have all 8 of you rally behind my recommendation, but I know that's not, it may not happen. It may, but it may not too. And that's okay. If I can get 51% of you, and I know that's hard to do, if I can get 51% of the city council to move forward on this event center, this project will move forward. If I can get 60% of you, it's a landslide. I'm going to do whatever I can to help you feel confident that moving this event center project is the right thing to do. I also need the people of Sioux Falls to understand that this is not the only thing going on in our city. My gosh, folks, we have people out there that want us to focus on the streets, the sanitary sewer lines, the parks, the public safety, the libraries, and so much more in our city. And I want them to understand that not only am I focused on it, but this city council is heavily, heavily focused on all of those things and more. It's just that we're tackling this very, very tough topic called the event center. But we're going to do both. Council, I'm going to ask you to rally behind this cause. Let's rally not only behind this cause, but let's rally the people of Sioux Falls to make this a reality for our city. Working together, we will find those solutions that are still remain, whether it be the expenses, on how much this thing is going to cost, how we're going to pay for it, how we're going to handle the parking, what it'll look like, as well as, again, how we will rally the people of Sioux Falls around it. And I will just flat out tell you that Sioux Falls and South Dakota, when we do rally together, Council, they are going to appreciate it when we do. The puzzle pieces remain, the discussion remains, the effort remains, and I'm ready to continue to run. At this time, I'd like to bring Mark Cotter forward and ask Mark to talk to you about some of the major things that are going on right now with our architect and our engineers. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you again, City Council. Want to keep you current on the activities that are currently underway with St. Combs Def Lifts and Coke Hazard, as well as Mortensen, the construction manager at risk, and really focusing here on the next 60 days. When we started this, we looked at this with a three-phased approach. Phase one was site analysis, which was to evaluate a downtown location against the Arena Convention Center site. That work is complete, so we've now moved on to phase 2A, which is schematic design and site development. And this is really the next progressive step for us to ultimately reach some good, relevant cost information for Director Turbach to plug into the financial scenarios of which he will be presenting those to you in the near future when a series of steps continue to unfold. Our intent is our next event center update will be June 13th, and at that meeting we will have St. Combs Def Lifts and Coke Hazard along with Mortensen actually come and provide you an update from their desk on what they've done over this on the schematic design and site development. It won't be complete at that point, but they will be to a point where they can start to talk and show you how some of the spaces actually fall into place. And then last is phase 3, and phase 3 is essentially final design, and as we've talked before, phase 3 would not be initiated unless there is a positive vote on this project. Okay, so what's involved with schematic design? And there's a number of things that go into one of these facilities, and so let me just take you briefly through. First of all, they start to develop the basic building drawings. What is the foundation system like, all the way up to the roofing system. Then they start to look at seating, concourses, and operations. And really, when we've told them, as we've asked for, we want this to be a very functional and flexible building, something that can have multiple events with minimal change-out time, so they start with that end in mind. They start to look at what will be the relationship and the number of seats in the upper bowl and the lower bowl, and how will they actually be placed. And then also, how will we link the event center building with the convention center building, so we can answer some of those questions on the extended flat floor space and what have you. Public entries and lobbies, what their size will be, how people will enter the facility. Also, as you get in, where will the stair systems be, the escalator systems, things to that extent, because those are very key when you start to cost out a facility of this such. The next is really maximizing revenue and points of sale, which is the public services areas, the ticketing, the team store, concessions, and restrooms. And there are core areas that they will lay out to make sure, as you see the functional spaces of the facility, where the offices will be, locker rooms, star dressing rooms, and the green room. Next will be suites, which will encompass the lounge, the club, the press facilities, and the training rooms. And then last, and one of the very important things, is we want not only this to be an impressive building for Sioux Falls as you enter through the lobbies, but also what is the back of house, because when shows come that have 12 to 14 semis, how do they actually get in, get out, because they want it to be very functional for them. This will be a facility that you can actually drive semis into the facility right up to a stage. That's some of the things that are critical to some of these shore promoters, so they can actually build their stages quickly and then also tear them down. And so you'll start to see that. Also with our climate, we want to make sure we can get many of those things inside so they can and work in climate-controlled systems. So you'll start to see that. They'll also incorporate with the back of house how the shared commissary will work and give some relation to that. Also, with site development work, you've seen how the facility fits in at the Arena Convention Center site, and you've seen how some of the access roads actually would be tailored. Essentially what this step is, they'll just refine what you've already seen, and then we'll also take a closer look at the utilities and their capacity, and then also examine the parking alternatives. Obviously, with some of the comments that have been shared by councilors and the direction that the mayor has given our team is to evaluate additional parking alternatives so we can minimize the impact on McCart Field, but also to try to address the parking issues that exist today at McCart Field. So that will entail we're taking a fresh look at the entire campus to maximize the parking that we have. There's some very good things happening today with the improvements that are planned at Howard Wood Field, and so we would want to make sure that we're talking with them to maximize their parking needs as well. As we have some of our alternatives that we've considered, we're engaging with the Softball Association as well as the McCart family. So before we bring any details forward to you, we want you to know that we're going to test those with the McCart family. The other day, Councilor Anderson was able to attend a meeting that we had on site with McCart, and I appreciate you taking the time to actually be there, just with his background in softball and what that brings to that park. And so anyway, before we bring you some of those alternatives, we want you to know that we're going to test some of those ideas to make sure that we've thought well through them. And ultimately, the reason we're doing the schematic design is to provide some very good information to Mortensen, because they are the ones that we brought on to give us some very reliable and relevant cost information that ultimately Director Turbach will plug into the financial scenarios. And again, we will invite them to the June 13th meeting. You'll hear from them in person and also start to see some of the sketches that they've done to that point. Okay, just 2 additional slides here. The communication plan takes us through today with the monthly update. Right now we are trying to finalize when we can do the next public question and answer session with Mayor Huther. Right now we're targeting June 8th or 9th, and once those details get solidified, we will communicate that. The next key update for City Council will be June 13th. On June 27th, Director Turbach will actually provide you an overview of the entire capital plan for the City of Sioux Falls for 2012 to 2016. We'll also then, shortly after that, going on the monthly schedule of trying to do at least one public question and answer session with Mayor Huther. And again, as those dates get refined in those locations, we will communicate that. And then the 60-day time period that we talked about from the beginning ties us out to July 11th, which would be another monthly update. Much work will be done over the next 60 days, and if you have any questions on any of these items throughout that time period, certainly don't hesitate. With that, thank you for your time, and I know the mayor here is ready to answer questions, along with myself.
Any questions from the council? Councilor Brown.
Mayor, I have a couple timeline questions. First of all, what is the timeline in terms of bringing on legal bond counsel and engaging bonding firms in that discussion?
Thank you. The timeline right now, we are working on developing requests for proposals for those services, so we're looking at doing that fairly soon over this summer for legal bond counsel services as well as potentially financial advisory services.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or Mayor, if I could, as well as the rest of the council, I would think that by early June, on the 6th or the 13th, those first 2 Mondays of June, do you think we would be prepared to give the mayor a vote on our location selection? Do you think that would give us time to at least have a first reading by the time we get through our work session? It could be next week, and we'd have an additional week. There's a calendar if everybody has one, but I'm just trying to help the administration get a grip on a location from us. But that's kind of, we meet next week. the earliest we could get it on the agenda would be that first, the 6th of June, or the 13th if we don't meet that deadline. But that seems somewhat reasonable by the council to...
Well, I sure hope it would be, Councilor Jameson.
Okay.
I think at our working session that we have, there's going to be a lot of questions, I think.
Right.
A lot of discussion that we want to have. I would hope that we could put the site portion behind us by the first part of June, so we can get on with the process of looking in and identifying the financing options and selling the project to the public that we need to accomplish. So that sure would be my goal. I think it's attainable. But as we go forward, I think the working session we have will be important that we have next week, so we have an understanding and a feeling about where we all, what we all believe.
Nobody's leaving town or has a vacation that's coming up. Councilor Urbanbach?
I was going to answer your question with a question. If you look at the, I think it's the 9th slide in the mayor's presentation, it says City Council support. Are we comfortable as a council putting on the ballot the question of a $100 million plus project without the answers to those bullet points there, the expenses, the funding, the parking, the design, and the marketing communications? You know, the mayor is comfortable with only 4 of us voting in favor of this project, if that were to be what he said 51% of the council is enough. So I'm answering your question with a question. Are we okay with 51% of us going with the project and without the answers to those questions? That's the answer to the question. Will we be ready in June? For me, it's only if slide 9 is... I mean, I can't answer that question for you, Greg, Councilor Jameson.
Councilor Jameson, I think what I heard Councilor Jameson say was trying to come up with a resolution to put the location topic to rest. I don't think Councilor Jameson was talking about the project as a whole. Prior to us bringing forth a resolution to the City Council and to the people of Sioux Falls about the project as a whole, including expenses, how it'll be funded, and things like that, we would have those other puzzle pieces or those other questions hopefully answered so that you could make a well-informed and prudent and responsible vote. That's what I heard Councilor Jameson say.
As I kind of see it, there's 2 key votes coming up. One is the location. The other is whether or not we want to send it to a vote. We may decide it isn't something we want to send to a vote, but either way, I think those are the 2 key votes coming up. Councilor Brown.
And that leads to my question, and I don't know, Deborah, if you can answer this right now, but backing out, Mayor, you've said over the weekend, do you want a November vote? What would we have to do? When would we have to set that up, that vote here, to send that to the public?
Well, to begin, it depends on what your question is to the public. Before you vote on the financial package, you may want to vote on the CIP, which would come in September and October, so that you have that into the CIP plan and identified as a project moving forward. If it's just about the site, and you could call an election, and then within 90 days we would need to have an election. That's a little bit tricky. I'll just let you know. You know, we have about 57 polling places, so there's some the dynamic of actually pulling all that off real smoothly will be interesting for your staff. But about 90 days is what the state law allows if you're going to call a special election. But again, it depends on what the question is. If you're going to call it to have the voters determine a location, that would be different. But when you adopt the budget and put and appropriate dollars and put projects into the capital project plan, you may want to do that prior to sending that to the public to consider.
Councilor Jameson, with your permission,
yes.
We're working with Dave Fifley and his team to try to answer that very question. Councilor Brown and Mr. Fifley, if I go out of bounds, please reel me back in. But we are right now. We've identified that by early August, you will need to have the information, such as the resolution that you will vote on, to put that on the ballot in November of 2011. That's the information that we've received to date. what may be prudent is that at our next meeting, or even before that, to have David Fifley and Karen Leonard, for example, put together some documentation for all of you to give you a better flavor of why they believe that is the right way to move forward. Mr. Fifley, I don't know if that's appropriate or not. If
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, Mayor, we'd be happy to assist and give our best estimate on a time frame, Councilor Brown, going forward.
And I'll also, Councilor Jameson, I'm not planning on bringing forth a resolution, nor do I think it's the prudent and responsible thing to do to just vote on the location. I don't think the people of Sioux Falls, and Councilor Jameson, I've heard you state this as well publicly, and I agree with you, that we can't have the people of Sioux Falls voting on every one of these puzzle pieces. It just is not responsible. I think that Councilor Jameson said it best. We've been elected to lead, and I think that we certainly are more than capable of trying to identify what we believe is the most responsible and prudent location for this new event center, and ultimately I think that that's what we should do.
Deborah?
Thank you. And if I may just follow up, as the elections officer of the city, I mean, there really is a statute that addresses the timeline itself, but as you know, elections are much more complicated. We have a number of items we need to tackle, ensuring that we get the polling places, all 57 of them, hiring the 270 temporary employees. And so there's a lot of dynamic that happens that's just beyond the statutory law in terms of the details to pull off the event. And so I ask that you would consider that and keeping the dialogue open between the elections officer of the city for that. Thank you.
Mayor, if you could include the elections officer, Deborah, in your discussions. Thank you. That would be
If I may continue,
yes,
I believe I
Mr.
still
Brown.
have, given that, if we know that we have to we have to vote on that resolution in August, before we even vote on the CIP, November of this year is too soon, respectfully, Mayor. And to back that conversation out even further, I think November of 12 is the most logical time to do it because it's the time we'll get the most representative vote. That's when there will be a presidential election. We know that we get a huge turnout of voters for that. We know the history of special elections in this city in terms of turnout. So I would strongly advocate that we vote in November of 12.
Councilor Jameson, if I may, again, my goal was to bring forth as much information that I could to the City Council so that they can make a prudent and responsible decision. We believe that we'll be able to do that for this City Council, for all of you, including Councilor Brown, by that late July, early August timeframe. But again, ultimately you will decide whether you want to place this on the ballot or not. By that time, we believe we'll have answers to those puzzle pieces, and then you as a council will decide that. I wasn't expecting for any of you to make the decision on whether you would want to put that to a public vote today. This is May, but again, it's your informational. And but I will do my best, Councilor Brown, as well as to the other city councilors, as well as my team, to provide you as much information as you can so that you can make a prudent decision.
Councilor Erpenbach.
Just two quick questions, and I have my eye on the clock. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. Questions for Deborah, and I think that you know these round figures off the top of your head. First question is, how much does generally a special election cost us? And two, how much then does it cost us to just jump into a ballot that's already out there, as in the general election in November? And I would remind us that we have nothing budgeted, nothing appropriated for an election in 2011. So would you give us those numbers quick?
Actually, thank you for the opportunity to answer that, because I was dying to answer that question. We had looked at that last year as a council, and jumping onto that, had we had some changes in state law for enabling legislation, we would have jumped on the November ballot for less than $5,000. Now, elections, because we have a number of polling places throughout the city, there's an extraordinary large number, about 59 with the school district, 57 without. It costs us between $40,000 and $45,000 for one election.
Thank you.
Councilor Jameson, if I could.
Yes.
let's say that it costs $50,000 to even $100,000 to hold a special election on an investment like this. The economic and commercial development rewards would dwarf that 100 to 1,000-fold, and the people of Sioux Falls are ready to reap those rewards.
I was just going to follow up with one other. Mayor, in your presentation, you made several bullet points about the arena site. I would just urge you to be prepared for a possible downtown location to be selected. You made some strong comments here about why the arena site is the preferred selection of yours, but you really should prepare yourself in case it is a downtown site that you haven't overcommitted yourself to one location that you can't come back and support the other.
Councilor Jameson, the commitment I made to you as well as to the people of Sioux Falls and the rest of the City Council is that I would give my recommendation. That's exactly what I did. It took some leadership to do it, but that's exactly what I did. And what I wanted to do to try to outline to not only all of you, but also to the people of Sioux Falls, in the most simplified terms that I could, what were the things that I took into consideration in making my decision. That's what I attempted to do.
Okay, thank you. Seeing that we have a 5:30 joint county meeting, we'll move this meeting adjourned.